driving fast. That's why he lost the control. Fortunately for me, I have been on this right hand driver side. It has been okay somehow, but the other side, left hand, finished.
Out of the 17, some have minor injuries. We have seen 3 who has severe injuries, and they all have brain head injury. So investigations are still going on as we stabilize them.
But the lorry was carrying assorted rice, and the 2 drivers of the 2 motor vehicles perished on the point of impact, and several others, persons, about 10 people, and of which one was a little child about 5 to 6 years, also died on the spot. We were able to rescue from the wreckage 39 persons, both men and women, whom we are following up in the hospitals. But at that particular moment in the morning, we took them to Ahero County Hospital, which is just within our jurisdiction.
Now, 2 children were on Sunday killed after their house was gutted by fire in Nyanduma village, Lari, Kiambu County. The mother of the 3-year-old baby and a 1-year-old girl said she had locked them inside their 2-roomed house and gone to church, only to be called by villagers who needed help to put out the fire. The family has requested an investigation to determine the cause of the incident, and the bodies of the deceased were taken to Mokoe Funeral Home as DCI detectives in Lari begin a probe into the matter.
Kuna moto imeshika hapa na watoto walikuwa wameachwa na mama yao wawili wakiwa wamelala, na moto ikashika na ikaweza kuwachoma wote wawili. Maafisa wa DCI waliweza kuja na polisi na pia majirani wakakuja wakajaribu kuokoa, lakini haingewezekana, mioyo yao tayari ilikuwa imeenda.
Roya the first born alikuwa na 3.5 years. Second born ni Miriam alikuwa na mwaka na mwezi mmoja. Hajajulikana maana hata stima mahali pa kuwasha ilikuwa juu, isifikia. Kiberiti nilikuwa nimeweka huko juu kwa itara, hangefikia. Kiberiti sio chini, hiyo hapana. Hangewasha moto maana kiberiti ilikuwa juu, hangefikia. 2 rooms, hii room nyingine tunawashia moto, ingine wanalala.
Hasa kini ya moto haijatambulikana, lakini tunaona kama ni mtoto huyo kijana wa miaka 3.5, kama ndio pengine angekuwa akiwasha kando, kwa sababu siku zilizopita, siku kama 3 hivi, tulikuwa hatukuwa na stima.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua chaired an Intergovernmental Budget Economic Council IBEC Summit. The meeting, which brings together the Council of Governors, state agencies and top government officials, comes at a time when counties are facing a cash crisis over delayed disbursement of funds. According to the governors, Treasury is yet to release funds amounting to 81 billion shillings, being the arrears of November 2023 to January 2024 respectively. The Council of Governors chairperson Anne Waiguru said following a prolonged delay by the National Treasury to release funds, the 47 devolved governments have not paid salaries since November of last year.
I wish to note that we have continued to make significant progress since our last meeting in October 2023. We had a very successful 8th summit at State House, Nairobi on December 2023 under the chairmanship of His Excellency, the President, Dr. William Ruto, and currently we are implementing the resolutions of the summit. I want to reaffirm our commitment to unbundling the remaining functions as per the President's directive at the last summit. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency, the President and I remain committed to fostering harmonious and consultative intergovernmental relations and cooperation at both levels of government. This is in pursuit of implementation of the Kenya Kwanza administration's agenda. We acknowledge and appreciate your continued support to the various development interventions under the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Let us continue to realign our development programs and projects to this agenda. As reported in the previous meeting, we are committed to strengthening key value chains including tea, coffee, dairy, livestock, potato, and sugar that have potential in the revival of our economy. At this meeting, we expect to be informed of the measures taken so far. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to emphasize our commitment to the timely disbursement of funds to counties. We are nearly up to the date for December 2023. Despite this, I strongly urge you to fast-track payments of pending bills. Indeed, we should not be having pending bills for the last financial year. Prompt payments for goods and services releases funds to our business people and spurs economic growth, especially the hustler nation, for a better and vibrant economy. Let money circulate. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we have noted that with the adoption of the TADAT system, revenue collection is rising. It is our expectation that the 27 counties that have not embraced the system will do so without delay. As we collaborate in addressing productivity in the entire economy, we must tackle the threats of a rising wage bill. Corruption is a threat to both levels of government. Let us work collectively to put in place control measures to monitor use of public funds for procurement and expenditure to be within the law.
Former Principal Secretary for Agriculture, Dr. Richard Lesiampe, has urgently called for police intervention following a violent attack on his residence. The assailants, armed with firearms, unleashed a barrage of 20 bullets on his home in Samburu County, creating a scene of fear and chaos. The attack, believed to be the work of bandits, occurred at Lesiampe's residence, which also serves as a holding place for neighbors' livestock. Eyewitnesses reported that the armed men, suspected to be after flocks of livestock, surrounded the compound before indiscriminately firing while approaching the gate. Swift action by a group of police reservists prevented further harm as they engaged and overpowered the armed men, forcing them to retreat.
Jana vile nimefamia akakuja kapika nyumba mpaka tikashinda ni nini. Hebu angalia hii. Karibu risasi 20 nyumba moja tu.
Vita imefika, hatuoni kama sasa tunalilia serikali ya hapa karibu, tunalilia serikali ya juu, national government, tumelia kwa mawaziri, tumelia kwa waziri ya usalama, bado tunaona hatujasaidika.
Ukienda Losuk ni shida, ukienda Loborongaria Pora ni shida, ukienda Siambu ni shida, Poro shida. So itu post hakuna iko shida. Morijo ni shida. Kesho tunazika hata makipi kesho.
Now let's cross over to the newspapers and take a look at what is making headlines and why. Quite intriguing issues that have been headlined this morning, perhaps on the corridors of matters graft. And we'll begin with the Daily Nation that speaks of a broken system, Kenyans in the grip of a corrupt machinery. Well, a 7-month-long investigative piece by the Daily Nation reveals a broken system, from delayed national identity cards to dehumanizing treatment in hospitals to pensioners dying in penury and kickbacks to even move a pen. Well, the investigation has revealed the rot in the people-facing sectors of public service, the humiliation with which Kenyans are treated every single day, and the putrid fumes of graft that waft into the high ceilings of public offices, and the deliberate creation of chaos by a criminal enterprise that has been allowed to milk, pilfer, and dehumanize desperate Kenyans. Well, that is a story that is on page 4, 5, 6, and 7 of the Daily Nation that speaks of a broken system, you know, and you know, it's a 7-month-long investigative piece, but I'll try to make it as brief as possible. It begins off from the public hospital, the biggest referral hospital for that matter in East Africa, the Kenyatta National Hospital, that says, or that the headline that reads, public disservice inside well-oiled machinery of graft and incompetence, where death lurks in the corridors of the Kenyatta National Hospital. Patients not attended to, incompetent doctors and nurses within the corridors of the biggest and largest referral hospital in East Africa, as well as to the you know, the kind of services that are being offered as well to the mortuaries. And that is what has been unleashed as a broken system, where Kenyatta National Hospital's officials, however, have denied the claim. Says, you know, we're only here for referrals. And the KNH official said most Kenyans do not understand that the hospital is a referral facility, and we're usually very overwhelmed with cases that could be handled elsewhere. Most of the patients you see camping here day and night should learn that we prioritize referral cases sent to us from other facilities around the country. So it all boils down to what kind of sickness you're going with to the Kenyatta National Hospital, and whether it will be termed as a referral you know, case from other hospitals across the country, because that is what will be treated first, according to the official, to just perhaps, you know, a migraine or a cough here and there, and have decided to voluntarily go to the Kenyatta National Hospital. Now, the system is vile, according to the Nation, crooked and debased criminal enterprise, a broken government teetering on the edge of planned anarchy. Well, they've made a case and example of various, you know, cases of patients who've lost their loved ones within that particular hospital due to negligence, due to a corrupt system where, you know, it requires money for you to get service, according to the newspapers. They also talk about, you know, just basic things that do lack in the hospitals a number of times. And so it is a whole array of, you know, issues that have been unearthed over the Kenyatta National Hospital, and that is why it talks of dehumanizing treatment in hospitals. And it also talks about pensions paying corrupt officials, again, persons that have served in the public service or are looking forward to retirement and getting their pensions, and it takes years just for them to be able to get their money back. And, you know, it reads, having made numerous trips, pensioners are always asked to use a back route to meet someone who will hasten the process for them. Well, you've worked for roughly 60 years and you're going for, you know, your money, and then you're told, you know what we need from you is something small, just for you to be able to get the money that you've tirelessly worked for over the years. So it's a big problem. And, you know, pension is owed in billions to various persons across the country. If you look at the year 2020, 2021, 100 billion shillings is owed just as pension money. In 2021, 2022, the figure is at 153.64 billion shillings. So there's a trajectory. It is predicted that perhaps in 2022, 2023, the amount will be at 172.64 billion. In 2023, 189 billion. In 2024, 207.8 billion. So the figure keeps on rising in terms of billion shillings over the last 12 years. If you look at 2013, 2014, the figure was at 27.9 billion. Then is that trajectory, because just 10 years down the line, the figure is at 100 billion shillings more. So there's a question of pensioners paying corrupt officials, gain at the center of it. There's also Nyayo House, where passport cartels have crafted a playground, and this is one of the issues that the CS for Interior, Professor Kithure Kindiki, has really was working on, or we saw him at least in the media really working on ensuring that this backlog of people that need their passports is done away with. However, in this house, there seems to be different service levels for those willing to pay. While some are stuck in line for hours as you go to get your biometrics or credentials approved, others file past in steady streams and walk out self-satisfied. So it's a question of who do you know, how much do you have for you to get your passport faster. So Nyayo House, where passport cartels have crafted a playground. So that is the story that has been printed out on the Daily Nation. A broken system, delayed national identity cards, the humanizing treatment in hospitals, pensioners dying in penury, and kickbacks to an even more pain. So that is on matters broken system. Also, Don Kisumu horror crash claims 11 lives. Witnesses describe a scene from hell at Odho area in Nyando, where a Mombasa-bound bus slammed into an oncoming lorry at 2:30 a.m. Bodies were strewn on the ground with impact of the crash breaking up the two. Well, this is one of the latest accidents that was recorded yesterday, 11 lives lost. I believe there was also somewhere else where 3 people as well died due to a road accident. And then we'll be talking about this fugitive tycoon Devani extradited and charged on the Star on just an oil deal that went wrong for Kenya. Also, governors reject allocation of 391 billion shillings to counties. A meeting chaired by Gachagua ended in a stalemate after the governors insisted on an allocation of 450 billion shillings. Now let's cross over to the Standard that speaks on experts. Eurobond debt to make or break economy. A report released on Monday says how the country will navigate the foreign debt payment and determine development expenditure, will define, among other things, the cost of living. Even the International Monetary Fund says its measures are likely to cause unrest. So what experts say Kenya should look out for, one is on the issue of debt. Kenyans must settle its $2 billion Eurobond, a decision that will shape its fiscal future. It is necessary to observe the approach to be adopted by the government. On government income, questions remain whether there will be an increase in public investment and subsequent impacts on future expenditure, as well as revenue strategy. Draft medium-term revenue strategy warrants monitoring of the implementation of proposed tax measures and their effectiveness. So that is a story that is on page 4. That speaks of just what the country is struggling with. And the first thing, of course, is debt. We've got such a huge amount of debt that runs into trillions of shillings, both foreign debt as well, or international debt or borrowed debt from beyond the country, as well as domestic debt. So debt is a big issue for Kenya as it continues with a repayment stress. It's basically stressing the country of just how they will be able to repay that 2 billion shillings Euro bond, $2 billion actually, Eurobond debt. So a report released says how the country will navigate the foreign debt repayment and determine development expenditure, which will define, among other things, the cost of living, even as the IMF says its measures are likely to cause unrest. So it's not just Eurobond that we do owe as a country. We also owe the World Bank billions and billions of Kenyan shillings. So it's a make or break moment as well, such a stressful period, perhaps for President William Ruto, who also plans to extend his development record, but is limited to do so. And, walking that tightrope between, we need money for development, we need money for recurrent expenditure, we also need money to pay off debt. So a tough moment. As experts say, Eurobond debt to make or break the economy. Horror accident leaves 11 people dead. That is on the Kisumu-Nairobi highway. SACCOs to soon access cheaper loan facilities. Simon Chelugui says that is a story that is on page 26 of the Standard this morning, that speaks on SACCOs to soon access cheaper loan facilities. That is an issue, of course, on just the loans and the lending rate as well, or repayment rate, that has been a big stumbling block for a lot of people who already owe loans to SACCOs. So SACCOs to soon access cheaper funds with inter-lending facilities, CS Chelugui says, as the ministry has prepared cooperatives bill to create a more efficient market. SACCOs with excess liquidity will be able to lend to those with shortfall to bank rates. So that is on the Standard. Also, it ends in tears for the Pharaohs, not just for the Pharaohs, but also Senegal, who were knocked out of the African Cup of Nations last night by Ivory Coast. Also, many Kenyans lack skills for jobs outside the country. The government has been touting foreign jobs as a pinnacle or a panacea to the country's joblessness, but Labour PS says many Kenyans do not possess the necessary skills for the global job market, an admission that of campaign. So that is the headline on the Standard. Then finally to the Star newspaper that speaks on how Kenya got oil deal suspect back to face trial. The theft of 7.8 billion shilling happened in 2008 and 2009, and he fled to the UK via India. Triton accused of selling 126 million liters of oil belonging to KCB without authorization. So Divani fact file as the Star unearths the man that is at the center of a 7.8 billion shillings oil deal. Well, years of legal flights to bring oil tycoon Yagnesh Mohaniyal Devani to book ended before Christmas last year. After Nairobi finally received the nod to get him, Devani has staged a decade-long flight in London courts, applying for asylum twice. And when it failed, he claimed the condition of Kenyan prisons were pathetic for him to be in to evade studying trial in Kenya. His company, Triton, was accused of selling 126 million liters of oil belonging to the Kenya Commercial Bank to third parties without authorization. Nairobi got informed Devani was due for extradition before December 24th, 2023. So what do we know about this man, Devani? He was born on 23rd March 1965. Fled to the UK via India in 2009, was arrested in the UK in 2011. Is a suspect in a 7.8 billion shillings fuel theft, faced 2 extradition orders, was extradited in 2023, was charged in January 2025, was released on a 1 million shillings cash bail. So how Kenya got oil deal suspect back to face trial. Also, top of the page, families kill loved ones for insurance cash. Imagine enrolling your mother, daughter, and mother-in-law for a life insurance plan, only to fake their deaths to obtain a last expense payments. This might sound like a script from Hollywood, but that is exactly what Philip Odero did to obtain 600,000 shillings from UAP Old Mutual Insurance Company in 2021. And he first, quote-unquote, faked the death of his daughter and obtained 100,000 before faking the death of his mother as well. So families kill loved ones for insurance cash, basically faking the death of their loved ones. I will also have tales of young campus girls who use Airbnb, a risky trade that we've seen has ended up tragically for most people, even as the campaign against femicide continues, or largely homicide as well. So this is the stories on the newspapers this morning. The Star speaks of how Kenya got oil deal suspects back to face trial. On the Standard, it speaks of experts' Eurobond debt to make or break in economy, that is on matters finances, as well as Daily Nation speaks of a broken system, delayed ID cards, dehumanizing treatment in hospitals, pensioners' troubles, and much more that just basically outlays the picture of the public service. So those are the stories making headlines on the dailies. Right, so Morning Live takes a break, but when we come back, we'll be getting into the conversation of the day, state of the nation. Quite a lot has happened over the past 1 week. From a judiciary executive meeting at State House, we'll be looking at exactly what that means, as well as what is in Kalonzo Musyoka's game plan. He's already said he's vying for 2027, or at least there are indicators that he will be contesting for the 2027 political seat. So what will he need to do different from what has been done before for him to actually climb to the topmost job in the country? That conversation returns. I'll be in studio by political analysts George Ngaira and Leon Harun, so stay with us. Send in your feedback across our social media platforms on EBN TV. We'll be sampling them when we come back. Morning Live returns in a bit.
Watching EBN TV, transforming your world. In a fast-paced world filled with distractions, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters: your relationship with God. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we take you on a transformative journey of building your faith, without which it's impossible to please God. A journey of introspection and discovery of who you are in Christ Jesus.
For you to walk with God, you should not crumble when you come under pressure. Kama umeokoka, sema umeokoka mpaka mbele ya president, mpaka mbele ya chief justice, mpaka mbele ya kila mtu. Hiyo ndio kuokoka ya ukweli. Kuokoka ya ukweli.
Enjoy a faith-filled environment of worship and ministry of the word every Tuesday and Thursdays from 9 a.m. with Reverend Felix Kevoy, exclusively on EBN TV.
The word of the Lord today.
The 2010 Constitution, as of the 27th of August, became the rule of law. What rights do you have? What does the Constitution provide? What chapter? What article? What act?
Know Your Law grants you knowledge and activates the power of the people. Join me, Consolata Chibalonza, every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on Know Your Law, only on EBN TV.
Hello, praise the Lord. My name is Pastor Joseph Musajawaza of Unfailing Love Ministries. I'm inviting you every Wednesday to join us on our program, Victory Through the Word. In this program, we teach you God's Word. We teach you to find solutions and answers to the struggles of life through the Word of God. Everything you ever go through in life, every pain, every tear, every worry, and every questions that you may ever have in this life. You may not get answers out there, but in God's Word, there are answers and there is a solution. The Bible says that God has exalted His Word above His name. In His Word, there is hope. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but His Word will always remain abide. I encourage you, engage with us as we study together, as you ask your questions, and let your questions be answered as you are built and as you hear God's Word. Our church is located in Umoja, Inako, near Olobon Hotel, just off Sango Stage along Moi Drive, and the court is known as Church Court. Give us a visit and your life will not remain the same. God bless you, and let's meet every Wednesday from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. only on EBN Television.
every Thursday from 8:30 p.m.
Listen, every man needs God. And every man needs to learn to humble himself before God.
Enjoy teachings from Pastor Chris Oyakilome.
Here's what the Lord is instructing you to do. Prepare yourself in the Word of God. Feed your faith. Prepare yourself in the Word.
Build your faith and get to know who you are in Christ Jesus.
Feed your faith. There's a spiritual attack of some kind through sickness. Build your faith strong.
Every Thursday from 8:30 p.m. on EBN TV, transforming your world.
The 2010 Constitution, as of the 27th of August, became the rule of law. What rights do you have? What does the Constitution provide? What chapter? What article? What act?
Know Your Law grants you knowledge and activates the power of the people. Join me, Consolata Chibalonza, every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on Know Your Law, only on EBN TV.
Watching EBN TV, transforming your world. Watching EBN TV, transforming your world. You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
From Nairobi, Kenya, this is EBN TV.
All right, good morning and welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Morning Live. We're about to get into the conversation on State of the Nation now. 8 days ago, which was last Monday, the Judiciary and the Executive held a meeting at State House, a 4-hour, 30-minute meeting. Whatever was discussed in there, well, we didn't get the exact content of it, but what came out was that they have decided to agree to work together to end on matters corruption. Now, that exactly meeting is what we want to see whether it achieved its purpose or will it achieve its purpose, as well as the nitty-gritties around it, and so much noise around the judiciary and the executive meeting. Is it such a bad thing, or was it for the benefit of the country? So that is the conversation and part of it as well. To talk on Kalonzo Musyoka's game plan, he said he is on for 2027 political contest. The question is, what will he do different to achieve different outcomes contrary to what has been there before? Remember, he has deputized Raila Odinga twice and has held the third position under the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition for the 2022 election. So is this just the time for him to go for that top job? That would also be part of the conversation this morning. So let me introduce my guest quickly in studio. On my immediate right, I'm joined by George Ngaira. Thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you for having me, Cynthia.
Yes, and just next to him is Leon Harun, as well as a political analyst and a former MCA aspirant. Thank you for your company this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Now, perhaps we just get straight into it. So, Ngaira, last Monday, we saw something that, you know, a lot of people had perhaps predicted would happen. That is to do with the judiciary and the executive meeting that happened at State House, despite a lot of people saying perhaps it should have been held on a neutral ground. Was this meeting foreseen, looking at just the attacks that had been, you know, set forth towards the judiciary by the executive and part of legislature as well?
First of all, Cynthia, thank you once again for having me.
Yes,
I'm
welcome.
Always happy to see you here.
Yeah.
So very quickly, the judiciary, the national government and the legislative are all part of the institutions of government. They are all institutions that are actually supposed to serve Kenyans.
Yeah.
And on paper, there's absolutely no problem if such institutions are able to engage and to see how they can serve Kenyans much, much more better.
Yeah.
That has no problem. Maybe what we need to look at is the context in which this particular meeting was arranged.
Yeah.
It came after we had a president who I have consistently said is a rogue president that has continued to sort of bastardize his own mandate, because the first and foremost oath that the president takes has always been to actually defend the constitution of the republic, and part of that respect is by ensuring that you have respect to the institutions that run the government, because that's what run governments. Cynthia, when you hear that states have failed, it's not because, I've said before, it's not because there's a potato that has fallen somewhere, but it's because the institutions that are supposed to govern that particular country, but they have collapsed. And they usually start when such institutions are disrespected, and so the public then disregards the mandate of those institutions. So when you have a president that actually who is supposed to lead the republic in ensuring that these institutions are respected, goes on a contempt spree, and then shortly after he purports to be able to invite the institutions to come and discuss this, the state of the nation, then that's where the questions are raised, because there's absolutely no problem with the institutions of government meeting. That is what they should do, because there's no institution that actually operates independently. They are all interchangeably. Remember, this judiciary has the power to actually send a president home. And also the president has the resources that are supposed to sustain the judiciary. Yeah. So they have to work together, and consultation is, there's absolutely no problem with the consultations. Maybe the problem is the approach.
The approach.
Yes.
Now, Ngaira says on paper, it's not such a bad thing to meet. But the reactions that have just come from that particular meeting, you've seen various legal minds as well as the opposition say, why would they meet in the first place? It undermines the independence of the judiciary. Now, is it a question of whether it undermines the independence of the judiciary, or the fact that the judiciary does not supersede the executive, so they just had to meet?
Well, to begin with, let me first agree with Ngaira. There's nothing wrong with the meeting. But now I see a problem when the president, after openly in public, after going in holding the court in contempt, I would see it as intimidation, a means of intimidation, than having the court come to State House and discuss the issues with him. Yet they are independent bodies. Though they work together, they are independent. But you see, what preceded the meeting in State House?
Yeah.
It was not only the president, we also the politicians. And we know that the court must be independent, or rather, the court must be seen not to work with the government, but rather to be an independent body. Now, this meeting, in as much as there might be no problem with it because they're supposed to meet and talk, because the president, after all, leads this country. But the courts are supposed to keep the government in check and everyone else. The government includes me, you, and everyone else in check. But now when we had the court meeting the government and having a conversation that no one was told what they talked about, is where I see there's some cheekiness in that.
They say they talked on corruption and how they'll fight it.
The corruption and how they'll fight it. But we all know. They talked about they talked about having talked about corruption. But are we sure? That that's what they talked about? Personally, I see it as a means of intimidation, my personal opinion, as a means of intimidation. Yet I feel that the court should be very independent. Very independent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, you say, that is what they will tell the country they talked about. So yes. What do you think, they didn't say what they talked about. So what is it that they didn't say?
That is a question that we really should be asking ourselves. Mm-hmm. Now, what it is that was not said in public? They met, they talked, and they agreed to work together. What is this working together? So if you ask me, this working together actually has a lot of unseen issues, unseen things, the matters of working together. What is working together? Mm-hmm. Yes, true, they should work together concurrently, but now the judiciary must be independent. So there are things that they did not speak in public that they talked about. Like we have all seen, maybe I don't know what they talked about, but we have all seen after that the issue of the housing levy. The court, what happened? Mm-hmm. Throw it away. After the meeting. So the court is still working. We want to see what was the meaning of this working together.
Yeah.
Yes, because my understanding, or rather my opinion, is that the government wants to have the court do some things, rather not very much be seen to be fighting the government, as it has been, the politicians have been saying that. Especially from the government side. But we have all seen the opposition say that the government should be independent. That the courts, not the government, the courts should be independent. And I agree with both with the opposition, that the courts must be given their time, their place to work, without intimidation whatsoever. So whatever it is that they say that was said, I have a feeling deep down myself that there is that was not said, that actually as Kenyans we should listen to what was not said, not what was said.
All right.
Yes.
So Ngaira, as Leon has said, what preceded this meeting was the verbal attacks that we had witnessed prior to the particular meeting,
yes.
Which necessitated Martha Koome to come out as the Chief Justice and say, I need to meet the president, or we need to meet the president so that we can have these issues resolved. But just after the meeting, a few days later, a UDA member of parliament comes out and says publicly once again that the president should not allow the courts to sabotage him, and in Kiswahili he said the exact words wakalie ngumu. So you'd expect the meeting would have bore fruits and the verbal attacks would have ceased, but that didn't seem to be the way.
What is extremely sad is that the Kenyan Constitution actually does give both the Kenyan Republic, the citizens of the Republic of Kenya, and this particular president, because he's a citizen of the Republic of Kenya, a platform with which he can go and raise his concern. It's a very clear path, including me and you, Cynthia. If we have reservations about this judiciary or anybody in this particular judiciary, we have the Judicial Service Commission, where we can go and raise complaints about a particular civil servant that works within the judiciary and raise issues on that, and that has been done before. That's why we had the judge, Justice Chitembwa. He was actually impeached because he was taken through the process and the president was able to form an inquiry on it. He was found to be guilty and was dismissed from the judiciary. This president is not an exception. His opinion on whether or not the judiciary is corrupt is valid. But then the process with which this president used to be able to address that particular issue is the issue of concern here. Now, you did ask my brother Harun here that what was the unseen hand is the motive of the president. Because he already has taken a position on the judiciary and has openly said that the judiciary is sabotaging his own development program, which is completely misleading because there is absolutely no, and when you look at the things that this president is mentioning, that, you know, the housing issue and the health reforms that he's doing, that, you know, we have these costs of sabotaging our programs to create jobs, you then ask yourself that where in the decisions of the court do we see a decision saying stopping the president or the National Housing Corporation, which is the institution that has a mandate to actually build public houses, to stop any process? There's absolutely nowhere that is mentioned. The court has only and specifically touched on the process of how the housing levy was arrived at. And they've said that the public participation was not sufficient. And that is what was questioned. But there's absolutely, this president is actually free, and the government, not just the president, because the president is a seasonal thing, but the institutions of government that are actually charged with public housing have mandate for the next 100 years to build houses for all of us. I pray that this government is even able to build 50 million houses. I need one somewhere in Nyali, in Mombasa. I don't mind, you know. So we encourage the president to be able to do that. But then, so the issue is the motive of the president of calling the meeting then, particularly when you look at the timing after he's been on a verbal attack against the court, is what is questionable. And so this was not really a structural engagement meeting to see how the institutions are functioning, because that could have been done elsewhere. It doesn't have to be done at State House, certainly not at State House where we have strong political opinions like the ones that we are seeing. This was a political move. And it is very unfortunate that the Chief Justice, this could turn out to be probably the worst Chief Justice of all times. Because when you have, you know, it's like you're in a relationship, Cynthia, and you have reservations about your partner. And then when you realize your partner is angry, you then become the one apologizing. Okay, I'm sorry, you know, you're the one apologizing. Because the judiciary is the victim here. The president has gone on a verbal attack. He's completely discredited the judiciary. The same judiciary that gave him power, he said that it's extremely corrupt. We can almost say then he must have become president corruptly. But then it is the justice now. The Chief Justice will not come and say, okay, no, sorry, Mr. President, I want to come and see you so that I know what your problem is. It's terrible, you know.
So was it wrong for her to initiate the meeting?
Extremely wrong. First of all, Cynthia, just when the show began, I told you there's absolutely nothing wrong with government institutions engaging each other because they're serving the same people. That one has no problem with that. But when you look at the context in which the meeting was planned, is when then you see, and then the location where the meeting is, you know, if I have an issue with you, Cynthia, and you have your own home and I have my own home, the moment we choose to go to one of each other's home, then the person that is actually hosting the engagement has a home advantage. So we need a neutral spot where you're able to raise your issues, and then I'm able to raise my issues, so that then we can have a neutral position on that. That hasn't happened, and certainly it doesn't look good on the general public, which then, particularly for the judiciary, because it's the last frontier in terms of how good governance is, as far as good governance is concerned, when you begin to have a judiciary that seems to be puppets of the system, then we are all in trouble, because that's where we can only run to in case this president continues to be as rogue as he has been so far.
Now, Leon, when the Chief Justice came into office back in 2021, just before she was appointed as the CJ, she said the arms of government can meet on administrative levels when they want to solve issues administratively, which perhaps answers the question on why they would talk about corruption as one of the issues that they plan to work together. The question is, corruption, will this meeting really achieve the aim of fighting graft, and how will they work together as the judiciary and the executive to fight corruption?
Well, I will answer this maybe and ask us a question. We ask ourselves a question. Will this achieve the set target of fighting corruption? Now we all know, as Ngaira has said, we all know that having that meeting was not wrong, and where it was hard. That is the problem. That is the elephant in the room. Apart from that, I personally think it is not going it is not going to help in fighting corruption whatsoever. We all know of the people that have been accused of corruption in this country, of the people that have been said to be corrupt in this country. majorly are politicians. But now when the Chief Justice goes to meet people who have been said to be corrupt, rather people who have been said to be corrupt, then the Chief Justice goes to meet them. Which I see that there was a lot of things that were unsaid. Now, you ask if this is going to help fight corruption.
Yeah.
I simply would answer no. Simply would say no. Because we all know, for us to fight corruption, everybody must be willing. Everybody must take the bull by the horns. Now, that would mean that the judiciary must be given its own free space without any interruption whatsoever by the government to do what they see and what is very right according to the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. Now, if a judge makes a mistake, there is, as Gaira said, there is a process on how to instigate the removal of a judge. You cannot just go out there and call for the removal of a judge. There is a process that must be followed constitutionally. Now, the issue of corruption, the judges must not budge. The court must not budge. The court must fight corruption. The court must stand on what is right, because we all know when Kenyans have nowhere to run to, they will run to these courts, and therefore the courts I insist the courts must be very independent.
Yeah.
Very independent.
Yeah.
So the issue of whether the court that meeting will achieve fighting of corruption, I simply would say, in a scale of 1 to 10, I would say 8. I don't see it achieving that.
It won't achieve.
Yes.
Interestingly, after the meeting, the judiciary was allocated an increased budget, was allocated more judges to join the docket. Specifically, it will receive additional support from the executive and the legislature. It will include budgetary allocation added to the initial one. There's also increased number of judges. So essentially, this worked to the benefit of the judiciary, this meeting, didn't it?
Cynthia, that is where the problem is. Kenyans were not stupid when they passed the 2010 constitution. And this time around, to avoid the business of mtukufu rais tunaomba barabara, mtukufu rais tunaomba daraja, the business that was there in the Kanu era, they made sure that the process of budgeting now becomes the fourth function of parliament. The original function of the member of parliament was to do representation. Then the second one was legislation. Then the third one was to oversee government. The 2010 constitution added the fourth one, which is budget making process. The process of budgeting and funding institutions is done in parliament, Cynthia. And when you go through the budget making process, and by the time we arrive at a budget statement, we have that captured because all government institutions are funded at that particular time. That is where the debate happens. That is where the budget vis-a-vis what is available is discussed and then shared according to what's possible. It's done in parliament, and we have a budget making committee in parliament that actually works on that. The judiciary is a key institution of government. It is one of the 3 key institutions of government. So the budget making process is actually done in parliament. President William Ruto or any other president in the Republic of Kenya does not allocate budget to anybody. He does, unless if he's doing it from his salary. But he's not. This president has never contributed anything to this government. You understand? So there is no way, and it's not possible that a president can purport to have allocated funds to anybody. Public funds are spent according to law, Cynthia. You don't wake up and say, I've changed this 100 shillings. I want it to go through this particular. That's why you have a budget making process, and that thing is debated in parliament and passed in parliament to become a bill. You understand? So it's very unfortunate when you have this kind of presidents who's purporting to be able to. For me, I have no problem. I keep saying this. There's nothing wrong with the consultations, but all these, what do you call it? Kujifanya. Posing as the one that was able to give this particular thing to this particular person. Kenyans passed the 2010 constitution. The mandate for budget making process is very clear. The process of allocating funds is very clear. And so all institutions are fully aware of their budgets as of July 1st. When the budget is passed and the president signs the bill, signs the finance bill, the act comes into practice, and then the budgets are start that. Nobody, unless if you have supplementary budgets, and that is a possibility, but then that process of going through, of passing the supplementary budget and reallocating funds is not done at State House.
Yeah.
It's once again done in Parliament.
But at the meeting, present was National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula, as
Yes.
well as the Attorney General Justin Muturi. Would they have had a role in the decision to increase the money?
Politically, yes, they do have a role because of the mandate that they have. But the legal process does not take place in any of those locations they met. Me and you can meet behind this wall and allocate some funds to our government institutions. But will it materialize? It won't. So yes, it's true. Politically, they do have an opinion because they're the ones in positions of power, and they're part of the people who are doing. They're able to do the arm twisting to ensure the arm twisting that would probably result into different budgets going elsewhere. But that legal process actually happens in Parliament, including the supplementary budget, which then would be the instrument that will be used to reallocate the funding that they are purporting to have given these institutions, particularly the judiciary. It will have to go through Parliament.
Now, the National Assembly Speaker, Moses Wetangula was present, Attorney General Justin Muturi was present, and they obviously know that there's an increased budget allocation to the judiciary. Does this now answer the question of, does the executive now supersede the roles of the legislative arm of government?
Exactly that is what happened. Exactly that is what happened, because as Gaira said, there is a process of allocating money to anyone in the government or without the government, to any project. There is a process, and therefore when that bill is signed into power, not unless there is a supplementary budget, then the money given to the judicial system, I don't know where it came from. Was it in the previous budget? Because it was an addition of what they were given. Personally, I feel the presence of the Attorney General and the Speaker of the National Assembly was a representation. Rather, I would see it, if I was the Chief Justice, I would see it as intimidation. I brought everyone here who seems to have a say somewhere, because the Speaker of the National Assembly always has a say in the National Assembly, right? The Attorney General has a say. Therefore, if you bring in the Chief Justice and then have a meeting that that is the Speaker, the Attorney General, and the President, and then there is the Chief Justice. Then after that meeting, we have some set aside funds of which Gaira said we don't know where it came from, because there was already a budget. Therefore, we have some set aside funds of which we all don't know where it came from, that has now out of nowhere been allocated to the judiciary. Now, as a typical Kenyan, allow me to reason as a typical Kenyan. As a typical Kenyan, I would see that as a bribe. I would see that as a bribe for you to do what I want. We all know what the bond of contention in this case is. We all know why they are pushing. The president saying this, the judiciary standing here, the president saying this. We all know.
What's the bond of contention?
It is about the housing issue.
Just the housing.
The housing issue that has been, and the decisions made by the court, that now the government sees as if the court is fighting the government. Therefore, when they meet and ask Kenyans, if you had time to interact with people, with Kenyans, they were very happy with the court and the independence and the decision and how they pronounce themselves on that issue. When they pronounce themselves, Kenyans were very happy. And now we have a meeting then. We have a meeting then of the President and the Attorney General and the Speaker of the National Assembly, and then we have some allocations of some funds. We don't know where it came from. Therefore, as a typical Kenyan, I would see that as bribe to the judiciary, of which I hope it is not. Therefore, the President and the presence of the President, Attorney General, and the Speaker of the National Assembly, that was I would say, was in a game of cards, that would be seen as intimidation. In my personal opinion, that would be seen as intimidation. And therefore, I still insist that the judiciary should remain independent of anything else, because we all know that it is the last resort to every Kenyan. the last resort. So when we see that if the politicians can pull a string here or there with the courts, it now becomes rather not an interesting situation, rather very sad.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the opposition says the judiciary has gone to bed with the government. Would you agree with that?
Well, with that context, having the Chief Justice meeting the President, definitely we'd all reason that with the opposition. We'd all agree with the opposition that the judiciary has gone to bed with the government. And what remains, and I'm still insisting, what was said in public, yes, was said. But what is it that was not said? What is it that was spoken in the confines of their meeting that was not now spoken in public? Well, I think I agree totally with the opposition. Totally with the opposition that the judiciary has now appears to have gone to bed with the government.
Appears, but it hasn't.
Not really, it hasn't. It is now. It is now in public domain. When if as Gaira said, if I keep on attacking you, and then the same you that have been attacking, now you come here and say, you see, Leon, I'm very, very sorry because you've attacked me. Because you have attacked me. That means I have the supreme power, the overall power over you, which is not the case with the executive and the judiciary. The judiciary is where every Kenyan, to the list of the last Kenyan, every Kenyan must go to seek for comfort. Must go and at least find peace. Where if I'm pushed, I'm stretched here and there, the judiciary must be my answer. And therefore, it must not be compromised by all means. It must not be compromised.
Yeah. Now, Gaida, the opposition says the judiciary has gone to bed with the government of the day. Yes. And yet, the judiciary itself ruled on the housing levy and said it was unconstitutional. There's no clear public process. It also ruled on the Haiti development, said that is unconstitutional. They seem to be doing their duty diligently.
You know, the judiciary is not made of one person, and they're all not working in the same office. It has structures. We have Supreme Court judges, we have appeal court judges, we have judges of the high courts, we have magistrates and other technical officers that work within the judicial system, and they all do not live in one hostel. So the opinions are not shared. So it's possible that we could be having an ongoing case that is being handled in a particular court, and that particular judge is not as compromised as those who purport to have been compromised. You understand? So it's possible that we can have a discussion. We can have the discussion with the leadership of the president can have a discussion with the leadership of the judiciary, and from the optics of it is seen as being compromised. But we still have strong soldiers within the judiciary who love the country, who love the country enough to ensure that the rule of law and the rule of law is enshrined as Kenyans wished it to be within the 2010 Constitution. So that doesn't mean just because there's one or two decisions. It could also be strategic. You know, I can give the decision that you pass that decision so that we are not seen to have been overstretched our mandate and into the judiciary as an executive. But I would like to believe that it's because the judiciary is a big structure, and there's so many other courts and there are many other officials of the courts, and most of whom are obedient to what the Constitution requires, which is that they become independent and they're able to pass decisions independently. And as a Kenyan, I'm incredibly happy that we may have a bunch of officials of the judiciary who are still able to stand their ground against an extremely rogue government that has openly indicated that they have extreme contempt for the courts of Kenya.
Yeah. All right, now I'd love us to switch this conversation to a different aspect that involves Kalonzo Musyoka. And there are indicators that he will be gunning for the 2027 top job and will be vying against, if President William Ruto will confirm, President William Ruto then in 2027. Now, Kalonzo Musyoka's political history has been one of losses ever since, I would say, 2013. Was the deputy aspirant to Raila Odinga in the CORD coalition in 2013. They failed the elections, or they lost the elections. In 2017, he deputized Odinga for the NASA coalition. They also didn't go through. In 2022, it was under the Azimio coalition. They didn't go through. And if you listen to Senator Enoch Wambua, who is a Wiper Party member as well as a close ally to Kalonzo Musyoka, he says this time they will get it right. Now, the decision for Kalonzo Musyoka to vie for 2027, is that a make or break moment for Azimio coalition, Harun?
Yes. It is a make or break decision. Because you see, Kalonzo Musyoka, now date back to the previous election, 2022. Kalonzo Musyoka, in as much as he made a sacrifice, by the way, a very serious sacrifice. So he decided, I will step down and not become the second in command. I will step down by all means, so that I am supported. My personal opinion, so that I am supported in the next election. Therefore, Kalonzo Musyoka saying that I will run for office, come whatever may, is a make or break decision for the Azimio party. Because if they don't support him, I see the party, I see them disintegrating. Therefore, it is a make or break for the Azimio party. But now, we all know, we see, they say that tell me your past, show me your past, and I can at least predict.
So are you predicting Kalonzo's future?
No, I am not. I'm just saying, observing a pattern.
Yeah.
Pattern creates a character. That is this pattern of Kalonzo saying, I will do this. Now what I will do, I will not step down, come whatever may. And then a few months to election, we have, only a fool does not change his mind. we are all very familiar with that, with that term,
famous line,
with that phrase. Now, Kalonzo is waiting to be endorsed. Allow me to use that word. Is waiting to be endorsed by Raila Odinga. And then he's also playing so much, in my personal opinion, he's also playing so much that the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, now steps in and also backs him up, and that will set him in a very competitive level. As you said, should the president also decide that he wants a second term, of which it is almost very obvious that I will be requesting for re-election. It is obvious that he will be requesting for re-election. Therefore, Kalonzo is placing himself to be the next option for Kenyans should they be disgruntled with the current president. And if he is not supported by the Azimio party, I think, I don't know, but I think this time round, he might not back down. He might not support anyone.
Yeah.
And politically speaking, should it come to that point that he's not supported and is run alone, then we all know the results. Yes.
Gaira, wouldn't you argue that Kalonzo Musyoka has all right to vie for the top job? After all, he's a citizen of the Republic of Kenya first, so he is allowed to go for positions if he would want to go. But why is it such a controversial thing for him to say he would want to go for the 2027 top job, contrary to any other person within Azimio coalition?
Yeah. Not just Kalonzo. It's the right of every other Kenyan who is an adult, who is of sound mind, and is able to afford the registration fee for presidential candidate. Remember, now you can even run as an independent, Cynthia. Me and you can launch a presidential campaign.
That would be a great team.
And we'll go out there to look for our votes, So Kalonzo Musyoka is not an exception. It is very much within his right to be able to run for office, for whatever office that he chooses to run, including the presidency. So that shouldn't be breaking news, because he's entitled to it. He's a Kenyan and he's entitled to it. But I want to tell you, Cynthia, that the presidency is a very serious business. When I've had an opportunity to sit in a presidential campaign, when you're running a presidential campaign, there are many factors that come into play, including your own life. You understand? Because that is a decision that usually, when you're choosing to become a president, you can imagine for the next 100 years, if the Kenyan constitution is not tampered with, we can only have 10 presidents. Out of 50 million Kenyans, to just understand the seriousness of that particular seat. And so, even though everybody is entitled to choose and opine that he wants to run for presidency and become president of Kenya, but then there's also the reality of what it takes to run a presidential campaign. We have almost 290 constituencies and about 315 sub-counties. When IBC goes through the demarcation in this, hopefully it was supposed to be this year, they're supposed to check the boundaries, and we might end up with new constituencies. back home in Bungoma and Kakamega, we're looking forward to some constituencies as well. In Tongaren there, we're expecting the constituency to be able to split. In Kakamega there, in Malava, which is also my home constituency, we also expect to have Kabrasis and Kabras constituencies. Here in Nairobi, Langata could be split into South C because Langata is very huge. So we might end up having South C ward, Nairobi West, and probably Mbagathi turning into a constituency. Then Currency and Kiumbuini, probably remain as Langata constituency. So we might end up with at least 315 to 320 constituencies because the sub-counties are actually based on the same data that IBC is bound to use because they use the National Bureau of Statistics data. So they look at the population number and then the average and see what can. So chances are that because we now have 315 sub-counties, we are likely to get probably 25 more constituencies or maybe even more because there are also other exceptions which come with how those boundaries are done. There are constituencies which didn't quite fit the size of the constituency, but because they are being minority, in Bungoma we have the Tachoni community which was given Mobia East. In Isiolo they were given some 2 constituencies. I know there are areas like in Baringo where we have the El Chamos, which is a small Maasai community that lives within the Baringo County. They only have 2 wards. It's a very small community, but they're saying out of representation they want to also have a constituency. So there's a margin of error of how that can go. But so we might have 315 to 320 constituencies. So for you, Cynthia, to run a presidential campaign across 320 constituencies, you need at least a minimum of 10 million per constituency. That's 3.2 billion shillings to have a consistent campaign that can run to all the counties like the President Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto did. And to do that, it means you must plan early, create a team early, mobilize the funds early, and go on the ground early so that you're able to win the elections early. And the question is that can Kalonzo be able to mount that? You understand? President Kalonzo Musyoka has only 3 counties and 2 million votes. IBC says we have 22.5 million registered voters. That means he has to look for 20 million other voters. How will he get them? Those are the reality that he's going to face. Because when you're running a presidential campaign, and I saw what we did in 2017, is that just the sheer number of people that you have to deal with on daily basis, the number of people that you have to work on daily basis, the different strategies that you have to execute in the different regions cannot be done by people who just want to sit and see things done. I'll tell you this. ODM in the 6 counties of Nyanza, the 4 lower counties and 2 Kisii and Nyamira, has absolute majority. ODM in the 4 counties of Western Region and then Trans Nzoia, which is an extension, has almost 4 out of 5, with an exception in Bungoma. That's almost clear majority. ODM has in the 6 counties of the coast, which is Kwale, Kilifi, Lamu, Tana River, Taita, and Mombasa, has clear majority. That is almost 18 counties. ODM in the northeastern region has the county government of Garissa, the county government, Ahmed Abdullahi, governor of Wajir, almost absolute majority. Those are 6 counties. There are already 24. Before even talking to any other party, just ODM alone. You understand? The constitution says, Cynthia, for you to become president, you don't need everybody. But it says you just need 50% plus 1. That means 49% of Kenyans can hate you. And you still become president, isn't it? Yeah. It says that you don't need all the 47 counties, you just need 24. That means if you just need 24, that means the other 23 counties can actually go to hell and you still become president. You understand? And that's what the constitution of Kenya says, it's no Kingaya, you understand? So that's what we need. And when you look at the counties that I've just mentioned to you, Cynthia, ODM does not need partners in those counties, true or false? It doesn't need any partners in those counties. And I have not brought in Nairobi, and then we go into the Rift Valley where you have Kajiado, which is an ODM county. Now, with an exception of the Emurua Dikirr because of the Kipsigis and the around area there, but it's largely an opposition county. Samburu, Turkana, Trans Nzoia, with big chunks of Nakuru Town. Remember, Nakuru Town East and Nakuru Town West has been in opposition since Acheng Oneko in the 60s. The late Martin Shukuku's brother was an MP from Kakamega, but he was an MP in Nakuru Town. So Nakuru Town and Eldoret Town has almost 30-40% of the opposition vote. Those are 30 counties. So you're saying ODM doesn't... I'm just telling you the reality of what it means, because we tried something in 2022, which failed. The idea was that in Nairobi County, we are going to take the entire ODM backing and mount it on Igade and for Igade to become governor. It didn't work. You understand? Because in parties and in any political structure, you have what you call extremists, and then you have centralists, and then you have the ones on the left. So you have extreme party members that you would find, for example, in ODM, that would only show up, Cynthia, if it's ODM or if it's Baba. The moment you alter that ticket, they go to sleep. You understand? And so you can imagine a situation where the party with the largest backing, the party with the largest number of supporters, the party with the largest amount of funding is not producing the presidential candidate. What are the consequences of that? The turnout will be a problem. So the sooner that ODM makes it known to, because the sooner it is very difficult for ODM, which can marshal 30 counties on its own, to purport to take 30 counties and mount it to a character that can only marshal 3 counties. 3 counties cannot even make you a top three contender in the presidential candidate, because you just need to have a strong candidate from Central, and you'll be able to outnumber that in terms of numbers. You understand? So Kalonzo Musyoka has a tough time to go ahead. I pray that the Azimio does not again fall into the burden of somebody's candidature. Remember, the challenge that we've had in the opposition is the burden of the candidacy of Raila Odinga. That the desperate candidacy of Raila Odinga has been the burden of the opposition, such that every time the opposition leaders need to be able to strategize, they are only talking about how do we make Baba president. Then they forget all the other strategies. How do we in county assemblies? How do we in the National Assembly? How do we brand our messages? You understand? Now that Raila Odinga is 79 and will be 83 in 2027, is very quickly becoming not an option for that particular race. We are now being mounted on another burden, the burden of Kalonzo Musyoka's presidency. You know, that candidature is a still candidate as it stands today. He cannot. I can tell you, Cynthia, if ODM mounts, remember the biggest, like I've quickly highlighted, is that the 3 of its biggest bases, the Western region and the Nyanza region and the Coast region, which are almost 18 counties. If you have a presidential candidate from Western region and have a running mate from the Coast, and then Nyanza's automatic backers of ODM, that already we're talking of 24 counties without any other partnership. So Kalonzo Musyoka has a big task. I just pray the opposition does not organize itself, because this president is beatable, but is only beatable by a strategic opposition.
All right, Harun, because we've got a few minutes to wrap it up. With how Ngaira is, describing, has given us a history, or at least what is needed for him to beat Ruto in 2027, if he's the man to beat Ruto in 2027. Sounds like Kalonzo Musyoka will need more than just the numbers that he has. And remember, it's Azimio coalition right now. There's also a question on whether or not it will still be Azimio in 2027. So I'd love you to speak on this as we wrap it up, on just what does his dream team then look like? Who are these people that are likely to join him on this presidency journey? Well,
if at least I have a minute, allow me to agree to disagree with Ngaira just a bit. To agree to disagree with Ngaira. Yeah. Now, you see, back in the year 2002, when Raila Odinga said Kibaki Tosha, the entire region, or the entire Nyanza region that he has already mentioned, voted for Kibaki. Yeah. So I tend to think, in as much as he might see that Kalonzo is a weak candidate, as he has put it, I tend to think that if Baba speaks
and says Kalonzo Tosha,
and says Kalonzo Tosha, the Western backing will come automatically, and the Nyanza region might come automatically, and then we have Kalonzo is a sellable character in the Coast region. That is the truth. Politically speaking, that is the truth. He's a sellable character in the Coast region. Very sellable character. Therefore, Kalonzo can still attain, without ODM, can still attain. Remember that Kalonzo had a governor in the Coastal region, right? Yeah. He can still attain votes in the Coastal region. Therefore, I tend to believe and agree. I said agree to disagree with Ngaira. Yes.
Is Kalonzo sellable in the Nyanza region?
Yes. If only Baba says Kalonzo Tosha, I am sure. In as much as he has said openly and clearly that if we don't have someone from ODM, people will not wake up to go and vote, which is also a point also. A very important point, that if Baba says vote for Nani, and he's not on the front line saying vote for Nani, rather, as he has put it, that if there is no ODM candidate, then people will not vote. But I tend to disagree, just a bit, tend to disagree with Ngaira there. Because if Baba says let me say as we put it, if Baba says he has said, and people will do as he says, his followers will do as he says.
Just 1 minute.
I see you shaking your head.
Just 1 minute to just before you finish.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was with Baba at Kasarani Stadium when he said Igade Tosha.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
In 2022, when we went to the ballot, our own senator, a good friend of mine, Senator Sifuna, got 716,000 votes.
Yes.
Our governor Igade got 500,000 votes.
Yes.
There are 200,000 people who walked to the ballot, voted for Sifuna, voted for Baba, but didn't vote for Igade. When we went to ask on the ground, and I went to Dagoretti North and I went to Westlands, where majority of the votes went to Sakaja, was the competing, I found there hardcore ODM members that said the moment ODM was not producing the candidate, I'd rather give it to somebody else. So what I said is that it's not that people will not vote for Kalonzo. I said the maximum turnout that we need for that campaign will not be as much. And yet you have an opponent that has extremely committed voters. You know, in central Kenya and parts of the Rift Valley, they're committed voters. They don't debate. So you need in the opposition as well a candidate that has committed voters to be able to compete. So Kalonzo Musyoka would get votes, sympathy votes. But I'm telling you, to marshal the numbers, that it's easier to take 3 counties and top up to 30 than trying to mount 30 counties on 3 counties.
All right, we've got a few seconds to wrap it up, gentlemen. Final word, Leon.
Final word. Maybe I say this just
in seconds.
In seconds, yes.
Yeah.
Mount Kenya region is not as solid as Ngaira is saying to the president. I'm 150% sure on that. Mount Kenya region is not as solid as you said, and therefore that might be a base for Kalonzo Musyoka. I am done.
For me, I wish President Kalonzo Musyoka and any other candidate that we might have in 2027. There are many other candidates are yet to come up. I'm hoping that my former Governor Oparanya, we will soon declare its presidential candidate.
Oh, really?
We have we've got to the 290 constituencies just to say hi the way we say it back home. You know, in our local language back home we say hukenda muvand. To walk among us people so that people can know who you are and what you're all about. We hope him alongside Kalonzo Musyoka be able to do that. Kenya is a free democracy. We wish them well.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen. George Ngaira on my immediate right, and just next to him, Leon Harun, for coming this morning to shed more light on not just Kalonzo Musyoka's game plan ahead of 2027, but also on the judiciary versus executive, who is fooling whom, attacks behind the scenes, or at least conversations behind the scenes and attacks in public. So that is something that we'll be keeping tabs on. Well, that wraps it up for Morning Live this morning. Thank you for your lovely company. Coming up at the top of the hour is Your Faith Today with Reverend Felix Kavoy. Stay tuned to EBN TV. Keep watching. I'm Cynthia Nanjala.